Good morning, everybody. Hopefully, you had a good weekend. Um, I think mine was the most interesting weekend of my entire life. I won't go into details, but it was probably the most interesting weekend I have ever experienced. Ever. And not all for the good. Just a very interesting weekend all around. Just a just just an interesting weekend. I think it persuaded me that life is one of the most interesting things ever. And I'm convinced I will never understand life. I will never understand life. I will never understand it at all. Anywho, it's Monday. It's a new week, and going forward with that. Yeah. Anyhow, this this week is going to be a good one, I think. And I'm going to quickly give you a rundown of the shows for the upcoming week, in case you don't know. Of course, today we're wrapping up Ephesians, and come tomorrow, we'll have a whole new slew of things. But this week, including, we'll have asking a question of: Is Christianity a culture? Does God have free will? And which church should I follow, and why? Um, so yeah, we got quite the list. So make sure you keep your docket clear on those. Um, and then tomorrow, specifically, no, it's not tomorrow. On the 8th is what would cause you to give up Christianity? So those are the lists for this week. Um, so keep an eye out for those this week. Okay. No, I'm just gonna leave it as that. It was the kind of weekend that it comes over, smacks you in the face, and then just walks off like it's nothing. Just kind of walks off. Yeah, I did decide to be on camera on the 8th, um, for two reasons. Um, and I'm going to be serious about this one. I mean, I know I joke about the whole what day it is and all that stuff, but um, the reason I decided to just be doing what I'm doing on the 8th is because I'm supposed to. This is not about me. I can't make it about me. And so I couldn't, in all fairness to him, to God, I couldn't just say me, and no. So I'm not going to do that. I'll do what he says, and that is continue doing what he's told me to do. So yeah, I'll be on both here on and on Too Strong. Okay, so yeah. Um, so today we are going to tackle Ephesians chapter 5. Okay, tackle chapter 5 today. And we're going to start in verse 15. Okay. Um, so here we go. So at 15, he says, see then that you walk exactly, not as unwise, but as wise, redeeming the time because the days are wicked. So then do not be foolish, but understand what the desire of Elohim is. And do not be drunk with wine, in which is loose behavior, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to each other in psalms and songs of praise and spiritual songs, singing and striking the strings in your heart to the Master, giving thanks always for all to Elohim the Father in the name of our Master, Yeshua, Messiah. Okay? Pretty straightforward, pretty, you know, dead on. Not a whole lot complicated there, except for the complications. Now, there are two things in this that the young in faith, and I mean by young, the newly minted, the newly minted believer may have a hard time understanding, and if not understanding, following through with. One of them is the very first line, the whole walking idea. Um, when I first started going to church, this whole talk about Christian walk and our walk and our walk, and I could not, my brain couldn't understand what this whole concept of this walking out is, and this walking and this walking. And I'd hear different interpretations about how it's about your conduct, and it's about how you perceive the world and how you are perceived by the world and how you function in the world and all this. And it was very confusing because then it would tell me of the world and not in the world and of the world. And but it was confusing. The walking concept was very confusing. Because what's the difference between that and just living my life and just having God added to it? Am I living not my life and living God's life? What exactly does this walk mean? And it never made a whole lot of sense to me. And the more I read, the less sense it made. Especially this concept of redeeming the time because the days are evil. And then I had to think, well, what do you mean by redeeming the time? This whole thing that was normally supposed to be a pretty straightforward thing of walk then became this insurmountable force of how. How? And how do I understand the desire of God? What does that mean? And then you just throw in this don't be drunk with wine, which is loose behavior, and be filled with that seems so out of the whole thing was very confusing to me as a newbie. So the breakdown of it was needed. But I realized I was looking at it way too complicated. I was giving it way too much thought and not looking at it as simple as he put it. And that was my problem. I was looking at it way too complicated. I added things that had no reason to be in there. It is pretty cut and dry when you take out all of the excess and the interpretation and what does that, what about the history? And when you take all that out, then it started to make sense. Then it started to make sense. And the sense that it made was this: see then that you walk exactly. That That word culminates the entire passage for me. If I didn't read anything else, that one phrase solves everything in the rest of it. It solved everything. In other translations, it says, "See that you walk circumspectly." Okay, circumspectly and exactly. So let's do one major thing here. Circumspectly. You got to understand circumspect. Careful to consider all circumstances and possible consequences. That- Careful to consider all circumstances and possible consequences. Now, when I thought about that, nothing else in the rest of the verse detracted or even was not really needed to emphasize anything else. Because if you are walking, just let's just take normal human venturing into the world, walking, just walking. I won't go stepping into something I don't understand or have no clear concept of. If it's a dark alley, I won't go down. A certain part of town, if it's a hole in the floor, if there's a sign that says wet cement, I walk. And as I walk, I am very, 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 very careful about my surroundings and where my feet go. Because one, I don't want to fall. And two, I don't want to harm myself. I'm also going to put myself behind the eight ball with regards to my destination. This particular word is going to explain everything after it. Everything. So, how do I walk a spiritual walk? The tougher part for most people is that they've been told that the Christian walk is very, um, what's the best way to put this? Supernatural. We've been told that the Christian walk is all of this fanfare and then it's a different realm and all kinds of stuff. But it is not. Because you can't get rid of the fact that you're walking as we are. We have a tendency to think that somehow the Christian walk is different. It is a part of our natural day to day. In fact, it's supposed to replace it. It's supposed to replace it. Give me a one quick second here. I don't know. Don't know. That isn't the topic today. So don't know. So, us walking in the Christian world seems to take on a different concept for most people. Like, we have no problem saying I'm on my journey to become a multimillionaire. I'm walking that to that. That's fine. You can say that and people understand it. I'm walking out my calling to be a contractor or some job. They can understand that. I'm on a journey called life and they can understand that. And it has nothing to do with physical walking. But for some reason, when we introduce the idea of walking with Christ, people get confused all of a sudden. Like it's some sort of mystical thing all of a sudden. Like, you can't correlate anymore the concept of your journey as a adult into adulthood to somehow they can't make that bridge. And I realized something. It's not that they can't. They do realize it, and I had to find this about myself. I don't want to realize it. Because innately, deep down, we know what the walking will entail, and we know what we want to hold on to so we don't walk. We don't want to walk that. But we know full well what walking is, and we know full well what it entails. We know full well. But we also understand that we doing that walk, come on now. I had to see it myself. I had to realize that what I wanted was not what he was offering. But I wanted what I wanted and not what he was offering. And so all of a sudden now the walk is a difficult thing. Meanwhile, if we have an obstacle in our walk to our own pursuits, we find a way around it. We find a way to get around the problems, to suppress the problem, to get rid of the problem, because our goal is very important to us. That walk we can do because it's what we actually want, which is why he's asked us to replace it. He asked us to replace our wants with his wants. That's why he's told you to seek the kingdom first. Because the kingdom's process and the kingdom walk is different than anything else you're going to do. But along the way, the so-called success you're looking for in this life will become inconsequential. It's not going to happen. It's going to become inconsequential. And for many, they do not want that to become inconsequential. They want God to create for them that is their purpose. That's their purpose. They want their calling to be God's calling. And without God's calling, what good is there to following him? Why do you think it was so difficult for the rich young man to follow? Why do you think that was? He had a walk he was on, right? He was making good money. He had everything that he thought he wanted. And as soon as Jesus said, hey, okay, so sell all you got and come follow me. Okay, look, God. Okay, listen. Okay, hear me out. Okay, so look, the walk I'm on, right? I could use this money for all kinds of things. I don't see why I need to get rid of what I have simply because. I mean, come on now. I just for like you could make this work, right? You could make money work for you. Why would I need to give up all? Why? You see, what we want supersedes what he wants. Walking in wisdom, because wisdom is a person, is indeed walking in Christ. And to walk in Christ, you cannot be walking in your own wants. As much as there are tons of things I want. And when I tell you a lot of things I want, both good and bad. There are lots of things I want. If I looked into just my wants alone, my wants, I would fill books. But my wants should not supersede his. For as tempting as the wants are, they should never supersede his. This is the walking. Consider it like a toddler, 2, 3 years old, just beginning to walk. What the child is trying to do is operate on its own steam to walk. Now, the toddler being able to walk is an accomplishment, right? And the parent is like super proud of the fact that they're walking. But the child does not yet understand the dangers that walking can take them to. The child is yet to understand how dangerous walking is. And the only thing their mind is thinking about is moving. Their idea of walk is just go. I see something that I want now and I can walk, I'm going to go do it. He doesn't realize the little Lego block on the floor that'll trip him up, doesn't realize the little table that's in the way that he could bump his head on, doesn't realize the unevenness in the threshold that he can trip on. None of that they're noticing. Why? Because their focus is not on where they're walking, but that they're walking. In comes the parent, and the parent is like, whoa, 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 grabs the hand, moves them out of the way of the Lego, gets them over the threshold, gets them away from the table, and takes them to their destination. But we, when we decide to walk the way we are like that toddler. And when we get a help from God to go where we're going, and He knows where He will pull our hand back and start to throw a little temper tantrum on the floor. I can walk, I walk, I walk, I walk, I walk, I walk. And then when you bust your head wide open, you complain to pops and mom like, "Hey, help me, headbutt, oh, kiss, kiss." You think we're any different than children? But when we take the instruction and walk exactly with the aid of our parent, we start to recognize little problems along the way. The Lego, we avoid the table, and sometimes realize that the goal we have in mind isn't worth the journey. And that's no. Like I got to walk where through what? Nah, I'm good. Mm-mm. Now I'm realizing my surroundings. I'm slowly becoming quite aware of where I am and how I walk. Thanks to my parents, because my parents are telling me what dangers are, what pitfalls are, what I can't navigate. So when I do develop the muscle memory and when I do develop the cognitive coordination of my body, I can I remember that thing almost tripped me up. I'm going to walk around that. Oh, walk around that. And I remember that journey not even being worth the reward at the end. I am not going after that thing. My wants begin to change. My wants begin to change. Why? because I am walking now with wisdom. And in that wisdom, I walk it out. It is no different. That is our walk. There are things in this world you cannot avoid. Temptation is one of them. But like good toddler, any good toddler, one would see a problem and go straight to the parent for assistance to it. So I was at a meeting on Saturday night and sitting there talking to my friend, really, really, really good friend. Um, so we're catching up, and another friend of ours comes over with his daughter, and she's sitting on his lap, and she's like burying her head because she doesn't. She's a little, reserved, and so she gets impatient and she gets up. She gets up to walk off, but she doesn't leave. Right? She just stays there and keeps clawing at her pops to get up too. And so what she does, she goes and she grabs his hand and starts leading him around to where he wants to go. And in her leading, hear me out, in her leading her pops to where she wants to go, she almost runs into a door because she's looking back at Pops to make sure he's coming. Pops is the one looking all around to make sure she doesn't walk into something. And as she's about to go into the door, it went from her gripping his hand to him gripping hers and pulling her back from the door. And I thought to myself, that's so weird that happened tonight, considering what's coming on Monday. Because we are his kids, we're his children. And sometimes we think God should come with us on a journey to where we want to go. And like any parent, he'll give us some leeway just so you can see how misguided you are. Just so you could see how misguided you are. Now, mind you, he knew nothing was going to happen. There is no way that my friend was going to let his daughter run into a wall and hurt herself. He knew that was not going to happen. And instantly took over the reins and said, "Hey," pulled him back. Now, the interesting thing is that the daughter did not even flinch about the pulling away from the door. And I thought to myself, but he pulled her back pretty suddenly and there was no, ah, which tells me that he had been correcting her for a while. And now she's to the point where the correction is not a bad thing, but a good thing. It now became something that she was okay with to the point where, oh, I must have been going to do something stupid again. He called us to walk circumspectly, walk exactly. Exactly. Our feet placement needs to be exact, calculated. And the only one that can verify that is by the same thing we've been saying, is by placing our path on his. It's a location. He asks you later to be filled with the Spirit. He has always been placing in front of us a location to be in. But just like every other child, we want to get out and do our own thing. We want to do what we want to do. We want to be what we want to be in spite of what he's called. We want to walk down our own path. We want to strike out on our own. We want to be independent. We want to be strong. To walk exact is a difficult thing when you have no bearing on what exact is. They have no concept of what exact is. This is how the best way I can break down the last end of this is. As an electrician, if I want to become an electrician, I have two things that need to get done. I have to learn about it, learn about the trade, and I have to pass the test. I have to pass their testing. If I want to be a true, true electrician in the state I'm in, there is a test that I have to write. And the test is not based on what I feel an electrician should know. The test is based on exact things, codes, regulations, calculations, formats, very exact things. And if I want to find my way into the realm of the electrician, I have to walk exact. But for some reason, when it comes to our Christian walk, we don't want it exact. We want to get to heaven and get to where God is via our own means and our own ideas and our own reasoning. When I took the NEC and the WAC test to become an electrician, I trusted myself the first time I took the test. It took me 2 tries. The good thing about the test is this. You can take the test, and if you pass one section, say you pass the NEC portion of it, and you fail the WAC, you can go back and only have to take the WAC, not them together again. If you fail one, you take the other. Okay, so stuff like that. So I decided I was going to go take both of them on the same day, which is okay. And I was going to go to the location for the test and be ready. The problem is, that test was 2.5 hours away at 8 o'clock in the morning. And in my brilliant wisdom, I decided to go over that morning to take the test. I left where I was to drive 2.5 hours that morning to take a test. Now, two things worked against me that morning: the distance and the time, and both affected my cognitive ability. What do you think happened to me? I could not fully function. By the time I got to the second portion of the test, that whack section, my brain was done. I had no more energy left. No matter how many things I took, nothing helped. I was done. Brain was burnt. No coming back. Failed the second portion of the test. What it taught me was this: I wanted to pass that so bad that I ignored all reason. I ignored every semblance of normal people's reasoning. For a test, you want to be prepped, you want to be rested, you want to be aware, you want to be present. There I was thinking, I'll be fine. I drive every day. I'm fine, I'm fine. And I did that and I failed. So the next time I took the NEC, I went over the night before, got some good rest, got there the next day, passed it, became an electrician. See, in order for me to do what I say I want to do, my walk still has to be circumspect to the chore at hand. And mankind can easily give that a try. No problem. You want to become a real estate agent? There's a process for that, and you will follow that fully. Want to become a doctor? You'll follow that fully. All the things that you want to accomplish, you will follow to the T because you want to accomplish something. Kids that want to become an NFL player spend every day training. They do the process, they go through the scouting, they do everything because they want to get to where they have to get to. That walk seems no problem at all to us. But when it comes to the walk that God's asking us to do, well, we have to be very exact with our steps. Somehow that's a problem. That's the problem. Where he's telling you, you cannot get what you want right now because what you want does not line up with what I want. And this is my walk. I'm inviting you into my walk, but it is still my walk. And in my walk, the end result is where I want you to be. Not where you want to be, where I want you to be. Your wants have to become my wants. The Christian walk isn't about you and what you want. It's about what he wants. And eventually your wants will become his wants. You will slowly see yourself letting go of all the things you think that you had to have, and they will slowly be replaced by what he is wanting you to have. But this is only if you decide to walk. If you don't want to walk it, don't walk it. That's completely up to you. No one's forcing you to do that. But don't get confused as to why your walking isn't happening and why it's not going right if you have a different end goal than his end goal. So how do you know what his end goal is? His end goal has always been and has not changed is knowing him. And in you knowing him, he can express himself way more clearly than you ever could through you. He can do it. I keep giving you the example of how I got to this point of doing stuff. I did not get here because I wanted to. This was not my want. I'm telling you right now, this is not my want. Mm-mm. In my flesh, it's still not my want. I want to go back to do electrician work, but my body can't do it. My body wants to go do electrical work again. I see it and I miss it and I want it and blah, blah, blah. And then I'll try and do one or two things. And then he'll be like, hey, 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 And then it took me getting broken down physically in order for him to get through to my skull because I was a very driven person in my abilities. I was very driven in my abilities. I spent my whole life working. I've been working since I was 13 years old. Chores was an every Saturday thing. It was every day. And then you make it to 40 plus and you're like, now you can't. But that was your identity. When that becomes your identity, not doing something that has become your identity becomes a painful thing. But when you realize the purpose behind everything, you realize, hey, you know, he had a plan. And it was a completely different plan than I could ever have. And he is creating for me a way to walk circumspectly, to walk exactly. And I still find my wants popping up. He said this would. I still live in this thing. I'll find my wants popping up, but I always have a gauge to see why I don't need to give in to my wants. If his glory is greater, thank you, Jennifer. If his glory is greater to me, then my wants will be less. For as hard as it may tug, and as difficult as it might be to reject my wants, I have to. And sometimes, rejecting those wants means more than just rejecting that specific want. It may mean shutting everything linked to that want down. Because that want does not line up with him. And I cannot put myself in the position of having my wants override his will. This is part of the circumspect walking. This is part of the exact walking. No one is saying that your want is going to be weak. In fact, your want will be super strong. Your want will be loud, and your want will be blatant, and your want will be very enticing. And I mean very enticing. Like you will spend hours thinking about your want if you're not careful, and days thinking about your wants. But if you're not snapped back out of it by his, there's something up. There will be times where that want will be so pervasive in your mind that you feel like there is no way out of it. And then you realize, yes, Nick, I did. I just haven't been responding to very many of them. I will respond to you today. Have no fear. Um, Last week was a whirlwind. Just so you know, it was a massive whirlwind for me last week. I had a whole bunch going on. Not an excuse, just telling you what happened. Your flesh will want a whole bunch of things. And just like with the training of the child, when God puts his hand down to pull you back from something, do not fight him. You're his child now. Do not fight him. Some of us will still pull a hand away and smack right into that Lego and in that table. And our walk is mediated by a very exact person. And that person knows the exacts that need to take place. He is the test, and he is the answers to the test. He is the walkway, he's the railing, he's the escalator, he's the vehicle. There is a set path, and the only way to keep on that path is to stay under Him. No one says it's going to be easy. Because if it was easy, it wouldn't be worth it. My only encouragement to you today is this: if the walk seems way too difficult, maybe you're trying too hard on your own. If this Christian walk seems a little too difficult, it's probably because you're trying to do too much on your own. Maybe, maybe, just try have Him leading you for a bit. So you actually learn. Let Him lead you. Stop trying to be the one grabbing His hand, dragging Him somewhere, and then you run square into a door, and then you look at Him like, why did you let me run into the door? You wanted to go where you wanted to go. Sometimes I got to let you hit your face sometimes. Sorry to hear that, Chadwick. If you're walking now a certain path that He's called you to, and you're finding yourself resisting it, you're finding yourself fighting it, you're finding yourself unsure whether that's for you, stop. If it's not of Him, it'll fail. But stop. Because I'm pretty sure we all know when He's calling and when He's talking. We all know. We all know. Don't act like we don't. We know when it's Him. We know full well when it's Him. And 98% of the time, it's not a comfortable thing because He's not calling you to comfort. He is not calling you to comfort. Be exact in your walk. Be exact. Tomorrow, tomorrow's the what? The 7th. Which church should I follow and why? I'm making sure I get every possible atheistic question answered. Okay. Which church should I follow and why? It will dabble a little bit into what we've already spoken about. Um, but I will be stepping on some toes. Um, I just want you to know. Um, I don't know how else to say that. I will be stepping on toes. I just want you to understand that ahead of time. If you have a, if you go to a specific titled body, um, let's just say it won't be pleasant for many people who have are tied to that whole concept. Okay, okay. So just so you know. And for those who are wondering what I mean by you obviously know God's voice. The best way I can describe it is like this. When you spend time asking him to be known, he shows himself. And not only in the life that you live, but you will hear. It is a natural part of the walk. It is a natural part of the walk. You have to invest time in him. And I don't mean asking him stuff and constantly asking him for and asking him for. I mean just in his presence, just nothing else but with him. Even if that means repeating the same psalm over and over for hours, that's a truism about him. Speaking all the stuff about him that's true to him, you will be amazed. You'll be amazed. You, you'll understand him. You'll understand him. You'll hear him. You will understand him. Lords, if you want to inbox me, you have to use the email, and that email is straighttalkmb@outlook.com. I'll put it in the chat here so people can have it. I'm no longer taking inbox messages on Messenger. Please direct all your information or questions and suggestions to my email, straighttalkmb@outlook.com. Feel free to do that. And Nick, if you're still here, I will be answering your question today. Um, we'll talk tomorrow and about the church thing. Phew, it's going to be interesting. I'm not going to lie. It's going to be interesting. So I'm still doing the journey. Just no one signed up for it. So people are running from it, but that's okay. The journey is always on the table and always optional for people to do. Um, it's always open, always. So just if you have and want to do the journey, just inbox me, and we'll break that down and we'll figure it out. Love you guys. Have a grand rest of the day. We'll be back tonight on Too Strong. We'll be covering that story about the gay couple that abused those children. Um, we're going to put in some smackdown again. We're gonna No, we're not doing any repeats, Linda. No, sorry. We're leaving the room open for people, new people, new people. Your journey is still up there. People can just go back and watch it. Um, if you haven't yet, make sure you interact with that like or dislike button. Whichever you feel like, interact with it. And if you do like it, please share. And if you're not on the YouTube channel yet, please go sub to the YouTube portion of it. It makes for a larger conversation. Yes, the journey, Lydia. The journey is a series that I do, where people come and they give their journey, um, and they just share their life with the rest of people. Um, it's regular people, normal everyday people that are either seeking or are in the middle of walking it out, but it's their journey. That it's about their journey. So we'll catch up tomorrow. Just inbox, Barbara. Just inbox. Straight Talk MB. And always inbox. If you have questions about the journey, use that email. That's the way and best way to get and to get in, get on, and we'll talk about it. We'll go through all the details and all that stuff. There's the email one more time, and we'll discuss it. But we'll catch up tomorrow for the church discussion. The ticker tape down below for those of you who know what that is. Whoever wants to, doesn't want to, it's there as the option. Not asking, not telling. It's just there because I was told to put it there, so it's there. There you go. As I usually say, talk to God first, not me. God will tell you whether or not that's something you should do, not me. Just want to make sure we know that. Okay. Love you guys. Have a grand rest of the day. Remember, wisdom calls to you from the street. So please, please find wisdom. Peace.
Hold tight the dreams, for if dreams die, rely on yourself.